Welcome to today's weather. Enviromania has seized the human species. Finally, yes, finally, it's come to pass. It's happening. That day is now. A critical mass of revolutionaries are rising up and stopping, taking a straight line, walking right at the gas and oil producers, the traffic jams, the oil refineries, the oil tankers, the tar sands, whatever you can do, whatever I can do to stop the toxins coming into the atmosphere, soil, and water. It's happening right now. People everywhere rising up. Feels good. I don't know what it feels like. Feels different. We've been waiting for this moment for so long. We've been waiting for this moment, and it's been taking a toll on us in what they call climate anxiety. And we've been taking the people from the executive mansions, from their limousines and their idling executive jets, taking them and marching them to Vermont, taking them out of Bel Air Drive, taking them out of Long Island, the Hamptons, taking them away to places where they won't harm anybody, won't kill our kids. Well, the earth is watching us do this, but then on the other hand, we are made of the materials of the earth. Our souls are sparked by the spirit of the earth. So it's a complex thing that's happening, but it's simple. Stop the killing. Stop the killing. We can find another way to live, where the fear ends, generosity begins. That's called the gift economy. The cyclical permacultural economy that is healthy. We can do it. Why haven't we done it before? Well, don't ask. We're doing it now. Enviromania is at hand. The Earth Riot. Well, that's the name of our radio station. This is Reverend Billy here at the Church of Stop Shopping in New York. Welcome to Earth Riot. Here we go. Hallelujah.
is that we'll be watching you. This is all wrong. I shouldn't be up here. I should be back in school on the other side of the ocean. Yet you all come to us young people for hope. How dare you? You have stolen my dreams and my childhood with your empty words, and yet I'm one of the lucky ones. People are suffering, people are dying, entire ecosystems are collapsing. We are in the beginning of a mass extinction, and all you can talk about is money and fairy tales of eternal economic growth. How dare you?
So Mike Roselle wrote this song with me, and I want to dedicate it to all the, Mike and I kind of figured this is almost the perfect Earth First song because it mentions monkey wrenching, and t-shirts, and bumper stickers, and Ed Abbey, and jail, and Jesus, and pickup trucks, and Judy Barry, and Bill Oliver.
But what about the guy that couldn't get off the log truck?
He looked a whole lot like Jesus. Yeah, he looked just like the Lord. Long hair on his head, his neck it was red, and he was driving an old beat-up Ford. His tailgate was covered with stickers. Love your mother and blow up a dam. Make love, not war. Don't drill oil offshore and get livestock off our public land. He was smoking a Humboldt hooter. Oh Lord, it tasted divine. So I asked him what gives. He just said, hey, Duke lives. And Ed Abbey was a good friend of mine. not like Jesus. He looked just like the Lord. Long hair on his head, his neck it was red, and he was driving an old beat-up Ford. He had a green fist on his t-shirt, a monkey wrench pierced in his ear. He spoke of the trees and he cursed corporate fleas while he guzzled a six-pack of beer. So as we entered...
Hello, welcome to News from the Natural World. I'm Savitri D. Gaza, under decades of restrictive occupation and now a 7-month siege by Israel, is approaching famine conditions. In Haiti, continuing unrest and instability is threatening the food supply on the island nation, which relies heavily on imports. The threat of famine is thought to be most extreme in Sudan, where the escalating civil war has now been ongoing for a year. Children are extremely vulnerable to hunger and experience long-term impacts on their development even when they survive. There are 16,325 chemicals associated with plastic production, whether used intentionally or as a byproduct of the plastic life cycle. Fewer than 6% of these chemicals are regulated. The life cycle of a plastic usually starts with a fossil fuel, oil, gas, or coal, that is chemically altered through petrochemical production into final products. Chemical pollution related to plastics has been attributed to serious health impacts. The Journal of the Endocrine Society recently published a study that found plastics were linked to $249 billion in healthcare costs in 2018 alone. Of the 6,276 chemicals researchers have data for, they identified 3,567 as hazardous chemicals of concern, 1,168 as less hazardous, 28 as watch list, 153 as not hazardous. Researchers do not consider the chemicals listed as not hazardous to be safe. Boredom is more common at work than in any other setting, studies show, and employees are bored at work for more than 10 hours per week on average. Even astronauts and police officers get bored on the job. New research shows that trying to stifle boredom prolongs its effects, and that alternating boring and meaningful tasks helps to prevent the effects of one boring task from spilling over to reduce productivity on others. To help minimize the cumulative effects of boredom over the course of the day, employees should turn to other meaningful tasks when they are bored to help restore lost energy. In a victory for environmentalists, the last coal-fired power plant in New England, which had been the focus of a lawsuit and protests, is set to close. Granite Shore Power said this week it reached an agreement with the Environmental Protection Agency to close the Merrimack station in New Hampshire by June 2028. The company said the site will be turned into the state's first renewable energy park that hosts solar power and battery storage systems. The company also said it would shutter Schiller Station in Portsmouth in December 2025. That facility, which though permitted to use oil, coal, and biomass, has not operated for several years. The Environmental Protection Agency has designated the Lukachukai Mountains mining district as a Superfund site, aiming to mitigate decades of uranium mining's impact on the Navajo Nation, which stretches across a vast area in northeastern Arizona. The Superfund listing opens federal funding for the cleanup of over 800,000 cubic yards of hazardous waste left by uranium and vanadium mining operations from 1949 to 1968. Navajo residents have suffered health and environmental consequences for years, with many developing cancer attributed to uranium exposure. The cleanup effort represents a critical collaboration between the Navajo Nation and the EPA and includes funding for reparative healing work within the Navajo community. New detailed mapping studies and aerial surveys have found that some beaver dams in California date back more than 1,000 years. One of those dams was first built around 580 AD, making it older than China's Tang Dynasty or the earliest known English poetry. Later evidence shows the same dam was in use around 1730, when beavers apparently made repairs to it. It was finally abandoned after suffering a breach in 1850, some 1,200 years after its initial construction. Beavers only live for 10 to 20 years and are often parents by age 3. so the California Dam could have spanned 400 generations, about the number of generations humans have had since our ancestors began farming. Indigenous leaders from across the Pacific have officially ratified the He Wakaputanga Moana, or the Declaration for the Ocean, a document that calls for whales to have legal personhood and all the rights that come with it. The sound of our ancestors' song has grown weaker, and her habitat is under threat, which is why we must act now, said Kingi Tuheche Potatu Te Wero Wero VII, the king of New Zealand's indigenous Maori people, in a statement about the declaration. Though recent years have seen increased conservation efforts, 6 out of the 13 great whale species are still currently classed as endangered, including North Atlantic right whales, humpbacks, and blue whales. Boat strikes, entanglement in fishing nets, and an increasingly noisy and polluted ocean continue to threaten whales. Sounds emanating from coral reefs change as the moon rises and sets. Scientists used underwater microphones to listen to sounds coming from coral reefs and found that there were differences in noise levels. As the moon rose, reflecting more light onto the sea, high-frequency pulses of sound increased, while low-frequency sound pulses decreased. The reverse happened after the moon set. Such changes in sound, the researchers note, indicate that light reflected from the moon has a direct impact on activity levels in coral reefs. Endangered small-toothed sawfish, marine creatures virtually unchanged for millions of years, are exhibiting erratic behavior and dying in unusual numbers in Florida waters. Federal and state wildlife agencies are beginning an effort to rescue and rehabilitate sawfish to find out why. Sawfish, related to rays, skates, and sharks, are named for their elongated flat snout that contains a row of teeth on each side. They can live for decades and grow quite large, some as long as 16 feet. A related species is found off Australia. Since late January, state wildlife officials have been documenting what they call an unusual mortality event that has affected over 100 sawfish and killed at least 30 of them. There have been reports of abnormal behavior as the fish are seen spinning and whirling almost uncontrollably in the water. A new report reviewed more than 230 research studies, NGO reports, and news stories covering 58 species and found that more than 100,000 dolphins, porpoises, and small whales are killed every year. The exact number of animals killed is unknown because many hunts are illegal and go unreported. Sandra Alther, head scientist at Pro Wildlife and co-author of the review, said, "What we can say for sure is that some populations could be wiped out in just a few years if the hunting does not stop." Local collapse of dolphin populations across the world has been widely reported, usually due to hunting, accidental capture and fishing gear pollution, or marine heat waves. Small cetacean numbers have fallen by 87% in the Indian Ocean since the 1980s. And now, the sounds of extinction. Indigenous communities in Bolivia have objected to Colombia's plans to recover the remains of an 18th century galleon believed to be carrying gold, silver, and emeralds worth $15 billion. Colombia hopes to begin recovering artifacts from the wreck of the San Jose in the coming months, but the Karanga, Chicha, and Calaca people in Bolivia argue that the excavation would rob them of their common and shared heritage. A substantial part of the treasure on board the San Jose is believed to have been mined by enslaved indigenous peoples in Bolivia, so Colombia's plans to lift the remains without consulting their descendants would violate international law. Much of the San Jose's cargo is believed to have been dug up from the Potosi mines in southern Bolivia. The Potosi mines were the largest in the world and an economic engine of the Spanish Empire. Historians believe that before the mountains were stripped bare of the precious metal, they were the source of more than half of the world's silver. 8 million people died in the mines of Potosi, most of them either natives or Africans. They were trapped underground for 6 months at a time, where they worked 20 hours a day. Many thousands of men and hundreds of children still go into these mines every day, looking for tin, lead, and zinc. The Cerro Rico mountain is locally known as the Man-Eater, or Montaña Come Hombres. And hear the sound of contemporary mining. inside Cerro Rico Mountain. Montaña come hombres.
Lo que ellos vayan encontrando. O sea, cuantas más horas de trabajo, mayor producción puede ser mayor. ¿No? Entonces también va a depender de la suerte que ellos tengan. Pueden encontrar buen mineral y en 1 hora, 2 horas pueden haber ganado mucho. Todo depende de ello, ¿no? Bien, ¿qué hora tenemos? Vámonos. Vamos a dejarle algo. Sí, vamos a ofrecer. Coquita tienes, ya, coquita déjale. ¿No tienes coca? Ya, vamos. Ah, sí. Tenemos coca. Ya, material explosivo más déjale. Y un refresco. ¿Alguien tiene hora, por favor? 12 y 10, ya.
Riots raged yesterday as thousands of tree people crossed the Hudson, establishing beachheads along the West Side Highway, planting trees and then disappearing into the Greenwich Village area, apparently taken in by sympathetic local residents. Police are trying to keep the so-called earthers from reaching the crowds of animal humans. Animal humans are occupying the Great Meadow in Central Park as I speak. Bird people were observed by police landing in the Bronx and west from the Far Rockaways in Brooklyn. Now, the mayor has asked the administration in Washington to declare earthers as terrorists. They want them to say that parents need to keep their children home. Bird and fish and trees should not be invited into our homes. The tornado storms that have hovered over New Jersey in recent years seem to have given the fish people cover. They seized Liberty Island and Ellis Island late last night. The Coast Guard tells us they're having difficulties in approaching the landmarks with their landing vehicles. Now, the refineries on the outskirts of Newark have not been online since a three-pronged attack by bird, fish, and forest people in early April. A reporter invited to tour the facilities found the oil storage tanks covered with rare vines. Experiments in oil reclamation use fossil fuel-eating bacteria. The old power plants are surrounded by armed police. However, the police are in turn surrounded by more citizens, some of them in the illegal nature costumes. Now, they were once considered earthers, were once considered an eccentric fringe element in the environmental movement. The earthers' flocks in schools and moving forests briefly seized control of London last month, forcing biosystems over human social systems. This is not a new idea, not a new. Social observers trace influences to Alfred Hitchcock's The Birds and to Edward Abbey's The Monkey Wrench Gang. The problem, officials insist, is the infiltration now of the teachers' union. All biology teachers in high schools are now held in the famous rubber rooms in the school buildings. Natural scientists in the universities are also reporting detentions and interrogations. The Audubon Society and the Natural Resources Defense Council insist that they've never talked to the earthers, never. Bird people were, however, photographed on the roof of the Audubon Society's headquarters in downtown New York. Infiltration of environmentalist organizations by the earthers is widely suspected by the police. You know, perhaps the greatest problem, though, is what the police call the Bronx Zoo breakout conversions. Traffic jams are reported along the Brooklyn-Queens Expressway as motorists spontaneously stop their cars and perform like animals along the highway with their stereos blasting the sounds of forest bird calls or big cat growls from the African plains. Conversions are considered the work of wacky cults to some, but others see the old flash mob tradition run amok. Large-scale improvisatory performances. Hundreds of vehicles have stopped in the middle of thoroughfares. Families are taking bird-like positions on the roof or on the hood of the car, soaring
roaring with their arms in wing-like gestures. Now, notable among the bird performers are the police, doing the blue jay boogie, using their blue uniforms to mimic the jay. It should be noted that blue jays are aggressive birds, related to shrikes and crows, and they are known for their gang-like flocking. No arrests have been reported, however. The BQE continues its conversion to a strange interspecies biohighway